Sure. My name is Cecil Konijnendijk, and I'm a professor of urban forestry at UBC in Vancouver, Canada. Green infrastructure to me is important because there are different roles, functions that need to be considered there. So for me, the public health and well-being aspect is maybe the most important. So green infrastructure in terms of nature, urban green spaces brings us different health benefits that I think are crucial in modern urban societies. Well, obviously, green infrastructure is also important for other reasons. So one important reason is to adapt cities to climate change, and for example also to regulate stormwater, which is a consequence of climate change. Biodiversity conservation is another important role, and I would also add, in general, recreation, aesthetics in cities is a very important function as well. I think worldwide we still have an issue of considering green space or green infrastructure as something that is maybe not always seen as important by politicians, by decision makers, and neither maybe by people working in city planning. I think green space is often still seen as a luxury rather than something that is really crucial and essential for cities. I think what really will make politicians see that green infrastructure is important is to communicate these different values, benefits, but also the economic impact these have. And we know, for example, that cities that are green and are developing good green infrastructure are very successful in attracting talent, businesses, taxpayers, not in the least, which is also an important issue, and also very, very successful in attracting events, activity in general. So I think there are strong cases to be made for green infrastructure. I really think that throughout my career I've seen big changes in how people are looking at green infrastructure. So initially I think there was a lot of focus on urban nature and the fact that we need green spaces for recreation. But this has really shifted towards seeing green infrastructure as an essential part of our infrastructure in cities to make cities better in general, but also more resilient and more sustainable. So I think from nice, green infrastructure has become necessary in the eyes of many people. To me, it would be great if green infrastructure at some stage would be seen even more so as something that is really essential for any city government to consider and be right up there with, for example, our road infrastructure or educational systems, the way we, in general, do business in our cities and develop our cities. Green infrastructure should be really part of any city development plan and any city livability strategy. I've been very fortunate to work in different parts of the world, and I've seen interesting examples, good examples of how green infrastructure is developed, planned and managed across the world. So it's not only European cities like Malmö or Stockholm or maybe Berlin that have been successful, but also places like Melbourne have been really good in turning around an idea that trees were just there forever, to realizing that trees have to be maintained and have to be used actively to make Melbourne into an attractive city also in the future where climate change is such an important factor. Being an urban forester myself, I realize it's not only us urban foresters who will be the professionals dealing with green infrastructure. We have to deal with urban planners, public health professionals, and dare I say it, also the urban engineers that will be important partners for us to really develop green infrastructure for the benefit of everybody. The question I always get when I talk about green infrastructure with politicians or planners is, who is going to pay for this? How are we going to pay for all this green space in our city? Well, then I can answer. There's actually many examples of how green infrastructure can generate economic benefits, and cities will actually recuperate a lot of those costs. For example, by not having to put in very extensive engineering solutions to stormwater reduction or climate change adaptation. And also not in the least, of course, by saving a lot on our public health costs. Education is another issue where we really can use green spaces to educate our children, rather than maybe seeing them get what some people have called a nature deficit disorder because of loss of contact with nature.